to be back with all of you. We're really, really excited. As you can see, I'm out here in a field in New York City, downtown Manhattan, just coming from a rally that was organized with nonprofits. And so I'm really excited to be coming from the field, still doing this fireside chat, and have an amazing guest with us today, Jennifer, who's going to tell us about her passions as it relates to mental health and working with the BIPOC community. Really excited that you decided to join us. We do apologize for coming on just a few moments late. And of course, we thank you all for supporting us, our content, and following us. Don't forget to follow us on all of our platforms at iRace Inc. On Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you are watching us from YouTube or LinkedIn, we do want you to go ahead and subscribe and share this message out to as many people as possible so we can elevate and amplify this message. Jennifer, we are so excited to have you with us today. Thank you for your patience. And I know we have a hard stop with you, so I do want to jump right into your bio. But thank you for being with us, and thank you so much for sharing this space with me, Jennifer.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for inviting me and Asian Mental Health Project into the series.
Absolutely. Well, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we've been talking all things mental health for the month of May. We want to ensure that our communities are educated and they have the information so that they can live better lives and can heal from a lot of the traumas that they have gone through. So, Jennifer, I'm going to read through some of the elements of your bio, and then anything that I have left out, go ahead and jump in and let me know. Okay. So Jennifer is a second generation Asian American psychologist in training. She's an educator and a community organizer with a marriage and family therapy background, pursuing her doctorates in counseling psychology. Jennifer works addressing the BIPOC mental health, gender power based violence, and social justice issues. She enjoys personal and identity development with youth and young adults to shape them into current and future critically conscious leaders. I love that. Jennifer works within wellness. She's rooted in her values in education, leadership, and community. And she is the director of partnerships at Asian Mental Health Project, which is a nonprofit dedicated to educating, empowering, and advocating for more inclusive and accessible mental health care in Pan Asian communities through the distribution of educational content, community events, and mutual aid. That is absolutely outstanding, Jennifer. Thank you so much. And anything I left out, go ahead and let us know.
No, that was everything. And if anything, it sounds even greater that you read it. Like, I feel like when I write, I'm like, oh, this is just my life. But when you write, I'm like, I think I had a proud moment for myself. So
Listen, I always say we don't realize how much we do until someone else reads it out loud. And we're like, who's that? It's you. It's all the things that
thank
you've been doing.
you.
So you've been doing fantastic work. And I do want to acknowledge you as a mental health therapist. The work is not easy. Being out on the front lines and advocating, not just clinical, but also the advocacy piece of it is so crucial. And you're doing it. So thank you for your work and thank you for your passion to this work.
No, thank you so much. And it's to be honest, whenever I get to meet other community organizers and just people who are really passionate about the mental health field, it's also an honor and a privilege. And I always feel humbled as well. So thank you again, Shaniqua, for you being a community organizer, you being out in the front lines, and leading iRaise as well, because there's just so much things that goes on in the
Yeah.
world that we need to address. And this is collective work that we need to do together. This is community oriented work that we need to engage in. So, sending all my love to you and the iRaise team for also doing this work collectively.
Thank you so much. Well, let's jump into it, Jennifer. How did you pivot into pursuing mental health instead of medicine? What was that deciding sort of factor for you that made you go into mental health?
Yeah, of course. So, just to give a little bit of context, in my undergrad, I was actually pursuing a pharmaceutical sciences degree. So, the goal was to be a pharmacist in the end. However, though, it was something that I never really wanted. It's also very common for Asian families to, there's three jobs, three common jobs that Asian families, want their
Mhm.
children to have. It's being a lawyer, being a doctor, or just like something in STEM. And so, I said like, no, I don't want to be a doctor. And so I felt bad and I felt guilty, like especially being like the eldest daughter.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what, like let's be in the middle. Let's be, let's try to aim for like being a pharmacist. But in that process, so like in school, I mean, in my heart and my soul, I just knew it was just not for me. I was never really good at OChem. I was never really good at like this like the biological like sciences in that type of way. But like I love like helping people. I love helping students. And so that was when I really wanted to make a jump into the mental health field, especially since through my journey through academic advising, I realized that I didn't have the most culturally sensitive and like most student centered advisor. The only thing that they kept on telling me was like, you're getting an F, like you need to pass, like you need to do this or you're going to get kicked out. But like, there's never like conversations around, what's like going on in your life, like what is just like going on in your family, like what is just going on in society that you feel like is like impacting you and like your academic performance. And so that's how I like jumped into the mental health field because I really wanted to really tie in these pieces that just like are fabricated into our lives, knowing that there's all these societal factors, external factors, family, cultural factors that really like impacts a person's current like wellness and like their functioning in life, and that they all interact with each other. And so it's not just about a person; it's really all these different factors that impact people. So I really wanted to make that connection.
I love that so much. And thank you for sharing that story. For a lot of people, when I think when they're going to mental health work, to me it's almost like a call into the work. It's you recognize that you've been called to something great, not that the other professions are not so great, but you really
Yeah.
been called to the profession of helping to push humanity forward through helping them to overcome a lot of the tumultuous things that have happened in their life. And sometimes it's something personal, and sometimes it's just that call, right? And so I love that you were able to see that, and that we now have you recruited in our field. So that's awesome. But I'd love to know more about that cultural aspect. You talked about culture being really important to a person's wellness, and I think that is a part within our industry that we tend to not have a lot of research and interventions around. But culture is extremely important. If you can talk a little to culture and mental health and the integration of the two, and how those the two.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of culture impacting mental health, I mean, if we think about culture, these are the lenses and the values and the belief systems that we go through life with, right? And they can be in forms of like standards and like these can be forms of like expectations. And so in terms of culture, like I can especially speak within like the pan like Asian community. So thinking in terms of like, you know, thinking about why is only being a doctor or a lawyer or like a profession in STEM like something so important, like to my family, like even though it was something I had no like no connection with, it wasn't something that I was really ever interested in, but like to them it was so important. And so when going through like my own processes of like therapy and like also like being able to go through like the education system as well, really understanding that like in terms of their journeys, like they immigrated into the United States to have a better life for their family. And so there's already that like context of like the American dream, or like immigrants wanting to achieve the American dream. And so from their process, they've had to make a lot of sacrifices. I mean, just like going through the migration process, the resettling process, and there's a lot of financial costs and sacrifices to that. And so, and not only that, like just in terms of their homeland in Vietnam, I mean, not a ton of financial support out there. And so they really had to work for their money and really learn how to save and just be smart with their money. And especially when they came to the United States. And so in terms of already that mindset of like, we never want to be in a position of that we're going to be financially unstable, where we don't want to be in a position where we don't have enough money to be able to put food on the table. So then that trickles down to this like kind of scarcity mindset in a way, in the sense where like there's not enough, we have to save everything, which on one sense there's a practicality piece. Like I love that my mom is like so savvy and like she knows where the money's going to go, and at the same time there's also this sense of like there's never enough in this world,
Right.
which can kind of feel scary, you know, like especially when you learn that as a kid that like there's going to be never enough, we have to fend for ourselves. And I know like for me, like I really try to approach things from like an abundance type of like mindset. Like, you know, like there is, I like to believe that there is enough in the world. However, though, there are structures, societal, institutional structures, historical
Yeah.
structures that don't
Mhm.
allow the abundance to happen, which is like unfortunate.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so and so already like you can kind of see that like okay, like they my you know at least like from my family my parents context that like they immigrated, they sacrificed a lot coming from a place of not having a lot of money, and so now there is this imposing of we don't want our child to like go through that either, so like let's have them be put in a good position. And so you know
Yeah.
then you know really wanting me to like pursue the financially reputationable types of jobs, even though it may not align with me. So, so that's just like kind of an example, but really like as you can see, like just from these different generations and these different historical events really lead to these larger themes of how it impacts parents engagement with me and like how my career wanted to look like for them in comparison to like my ideals. So those are just like a couple of like examples I would like to share.
No, those are really, really, it reminds me of another guest we had last week and another guest the week before that for our podcast in Atlanta, and um, woman came on and from different parts. Don't remember exactly which country. I think one was Bangladesh, and the other was Hawaii, I believe it was, or Philippines, and one Bangladesh, and very similar stories. So I'm listening to you, and I'm collectively hearing the voices of other people that are first gen that have gone through a lot of these challenges migrating to America, and I think just not realizing the pressure of what that was for them growing up in a household where parents were, they were feeling the structural barriers. And in turn, the kids felt it. They were the ones that bear that burden. Um, and we talked about how during those times they weren't allowed to express their emotions to their parents. They had to hold it in. There was no talk about emotions or mental health. So this sort of is how they ended up going into the mental health field, because they didn't have that as an outlet. So I'm listening to your story, and it's so similar to these other women that have come on to talk about what these issues were for them growing up. And it reminds me of what our young people are going through. So maybe they're first gen young people right now. What are some of the mental health barriers or challenges that they're facing right now?
Yeah, I feel like one of the so for like first gen and like second gen, at least in the work that like I've been doing, like one of the challenges that has been like prominent, especially like in doing workshops and like doing talks, is like the number one question that I get is like, how do you bridge these like generational gaps?
Yes.
Like one of them, so like you know, you have the children of adults,
Yeah.
the children of immigrant parents, and
Right.
so, you know, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's just been a rise in mental health concerns and like more conversations. So, like with that, there's uh, in current times now, there is just more acceptance and like more of an openness to like really tending to a person's mental health and like well-being. And so now this, you know, the children of immigrant parents are like jazzed and like excited about mental health, but then they look at their, you know, like families and they're like, wait, like I want you to like go into therapy. But then their parents and their relatives are like, no, like absolutely not. Like why would I need therapy? Because you know you think about like negative
Right.
stigma,
Hmm.
you think about just like the just like mental health not being a common conversation to have, like you were mentioning earlier, not really talking about emotions, or we don't air out our dirty laundry to people.
Mhm.
And so there's already that like generational tension where one really wants to really uplift, you know, like their family member, like their family members in the older generation, but you know, not everybody wants to.
Mm.
Like, it's either not ready or they just feel like, you know, it's like not for me. So, there's
Mm.
like challenges that trying to bridge that, and you know, I always get the question of like, I want my parents to like go into therapy. Like, how do I do that? And I'm like, well, you know, this is a whole other discussion. So,
Right. This is what we're trying to solve. You know, you really nailed it, Jennifer. It is a generational tension. It's a generational disconnect. And I would love to see what it would look like to bring generations together. Because one of the things I will say, it's not just your culture. Within BIPOC, obviously, there's African American, and we're dealing with the same thing. We're trying to get our
mhm,
parents to like, you need to go to therapy. And they're like, I don't need to go to therapy. It's nothing wrong with me. It's like, you don't, it does not mean that something is wrong with you, right? And I even, say this also, trauma is not an indication that something is wrong with you, but that something happened to you. So when we take it
absolutely.
off of the almost like it's your fault, because that's the way mental health has been stigmatized. Something is wrong
Mhm.
with you, it's your fault, and we start to reframe this. I think more people are gonna be more open to at least the conversation of what therapy would look like. So I would love to see that generational gap bridged, but I know we're coming up on time, so I do want you to share what it would look like in your work if you were to see change structurally in the area of mental health in BIPOC communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like so much of psychology, like when people talk about like psychology, it's talked about in like this broad sense. But if you really look at academia, you really look at different like mental health approaches, they're really from a Eurocentric and North American
Oh, yeah.
psychology framework, you
Oh, yeah.
know? And so, like, really to really challenge that, really being able to bring in all these like historical and cultural beautiful practices and traditions that have been brought in by like Black psychologists, Latinx
Mhm.
psychologists, Asian
Mhm.
psychologists, collectivistic frameworks, holistic
Yes.
healing, and to really like understand that healing doesn't have to just be therapy. Like, I understand that therapy isn't for everybody. Not only that, therapy is not accessible for everybody. But
Yes.
however, though, healing can be shown and can be in ways like just gathering with your community, right? Like, if
Yes.
there's a cultural holiday,
Yeah.
gather, be together, eat
Mhm.
amazing food. Healing is being able to like really pass on those like recipes that have been
Yep.
passed down from generation to generation. Being able to talk in like your family's like native tongue, and experiencing joy, like, you know, and these are all things I feel like doesn't get talked about, because like you were saying, like so much of mental health conversations around like diagnosis and like pathology and something's wrong with you, but it's like we can heal through joy and being in community with each other as well.
Amazing. I love that. And we're coming to a close. We got to do a part two because you touched on a passion of mine, and that is Eurocentric interventions. We have so much work to do. This is one of the principles of IRA's mental health programs. There are many ways to healing. There are many pathways to healing, not just one. And we have to
Yes.
create them because some of them don't exist, or some of them exist but we haven't brought them into the forefront, into clinical practice. Interventions need to be re-engineered, and we need to be the ones leading that cause. We're coming to a close. You got to go to class, Jennifer, but we definitely need to do a part two. I appreciate you being with us. Do you want to share any last words as we're closing up our segment?
The only thing that I really have is like, you know, if y'all haven't taken a break or taken a moment or engage in rest, please do so. Like there's just so much going on in the world, and like we just really need to just have a moment for ourselves. And it's also a way to tackle productivity culture, hustle culture, and as well also Eurocentric cultures of our worth is tied to productivity. But we are all worth it. We are all valuable because as human beings, we just have worth and value just inherently. So
That's right. I love that. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. Echoing the sentiments of Jennifer, if you've not taken a break, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. You really should be doing it every day. But take a break, be with yourself, pour into yourself, know that you're valued, you're valuable, you deserve it, and break from the hustle culture, says the one that's in the car right now doing a fireside chat. But I will have my break today, I promise you. So please do. Mental health is a state of being, it is not something that's horrible or scary. And we really want to destigmatize what the myths are out there. So thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you for being with us. Thank you all for watching. We're coming to a close. We'd love for you to comment below and share this message and uplift this conversation. We want to continue to educate our communities and get this information out there. And we do hope that this fireside chat has resonated with you, that there was a wisdom nugget that you were able to get. We'll be coming back next week, Thursday, as we continue on mental health. And so, again, we appreciate all of you for following our content. Tomorrow, we will be releasing one of our prior episodes on mental health through our ATL Rise podcast. So if you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do that immediately so that you'll be the first to be notified when new episodes are released. I know every Friday I'm waiting on my podcast app for that episode to come out. So we do want you to be the first to be notified so you can continue enjoying this amazing content to refuel you, to empower you, and to make sure that you have the information you needed so that you can live the life that you deserve. Thank you all again so much for watching. Have a wonderful week ahead, and we'll be back next week. Thank you, Jennifer.